name is Gokhan Karakus. I'm a architectural critic and designer from Istanbul, and in the name of the GAD Foundation and GAD Architecture of Istanbul, we are here on January 7th, 2019 in Istanbul, talking to Nikita Tokarev, who is the director of the Moscow School of Architecture in Moscow, and also a professor and educator there leading one of the modules. So welcome, Nikita, to Istanbul and to GAD.
Well, thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure for me to come. I remember, here, a lecture of GED architects in our school in November or December last year. So I'm happy to be here, and to see, how are you working here in Istanbul? I've been in Istanbul several times, but for the first time I see the Turkish colleagues, the Turkish architects. So for me, it's really interesting to see what happens in contemporary architecture of Turkey in Istanbul.
So in terms of contemporary architecture, you are both a practitioner and educator, and focusing mainly in the Moscow area. Can you describe your background a little bit, where you graduated from architecture school in Moscow in the 80s, 90s? Can you describe your architecture education and what was the nature of the architecture culture in Moscow at that point?
Well, no, if I'm talking about me personally.
Yes, you personally.
I was graduated in '94. Moscow Architectural Institute,
which is the main architecture school of both Moscow and can we say also of Russia?
Yeah, it is. It is. This is the biggest and the oldest and main architecture school in our country. So after that, I had several courses abroad. For example, in Rotterdam, I had an internship in Dublin, in Ireland. Well, then I came back to Russia and had practice in Moscow. In parallel, I'm teaching in Moscow Architecture Institute. Before we founded the Moscow Architecture School, March, in 2012.
So
7 years ago.
So you are the graduate, and then you taught at the main architecture school, Moscow Architecture School, in the 90s and 2000s. Can you describe a little bit what this architecture school, what kind of architecture it was promoting, and what was the nature of the education that you went through, and then you later became an educator?
You see, it seems to me that Russian architectural education is, let's say, really traditional. It contains the remains of Beaux-Arts school, drawing or painting or sculpture, in combination with some achievements of Kutemas or the ideas of Russian avant-garde, like, for example, the compositional principles, the abstract, let's say, sculpture or composition. But at the same time, I'm afraid that our architectural education is not very modern. It's a little bit stopped it in its development, maybe in 60s or maybe in 70s, and the program didn't change since that time, that epoch.
And this is the state school, so it's connected to the Soviet and now to the Russian form of university education.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It is the state school. As I said, the program was born. I think the actual program was created in the 60s. And didn't change very much until today. This is one of the reasons why we decided to launch the new school. Well, because only one school is not enough for such a large country as Russia.
So the
Because
new school was launched in what year? 2014?
2012.
12, okay. So you said it's one school of architecture is not enough for all of Russia. Why do you think that there was only one school of architecture? And can you describe some of the initial goals that were part of the foundation of the march when you all were thinking about it in 2012?
Well, no, first of all, why I'm saying one school? Actually, of course, it is not only Moscow Architecture School, Moscow Architecture Institute in Russia, but the other schools are more or less copying the program of the main school, main institute. That's why, the diversity is not so big. Well, when we're talking about our school, about March, our first goal was to connect the Russian architectural education with the international education. That's why we contacted with our academic partners, with the London Metropolitan University. And it means that we are taking from London the structure of the course, and our graduates receive the British diplomas in parallel with Russian ones. So there are two diplomas, and we are somehow part of the British educational system. At the same time, we decided not to copy exactly the British course, and we created our own course based on their structure of the modules, of the learning outcomes, but with the Russian context, with Russian content. So most of problems we were working on with students, most of sites, most of tasks are related much more to Russia, are actual for Russian architecture, not the British architecture. And our tutors are the most prominent Russian architects, practicing architects. And this is also very important for our school.
What does that mean that has more to do with Russian architecture? What are some of the features of this specificity with regard to the Russian architectural context, whether it is in design or in construction? What is something specific that you can talk about?
Well, it is not too easy to explain in a short words. Now, first of all, I think, we have a large Soviet legacy. We are still living in a environment and in a physical environment created in Soviet time. All our cities contains, for example, the microrayons, the panel blocks. And this is our context. Well, there is nothing similar in Great Britain, for example, or in Germany. The second point is that...
So the built environment dating from the Soviet period, you're saying, has a serious impact on the way architecture is done today.
This is still maybe 90 or 95% of built environment is still Soviet or post-Soviet, which repeats again and again, the Soviet principles of urbanism, for example, where repeating microrayons, maybe in a larger scale, maybe higher but they are more or less the same. The second point is that the way of Russian architecture during last 25 or 30 years, it is not the same as Europe did.
This is the post-Glasnost period you're speaking of.
Yeah, sure. I mean that
1989 till today.
Yeah, we repeated somehow all the steps that European or world architecture had, well, when Russia was behind the Iron Curtain. Yeah, so our legal cultural context is not similar to Europe. So it means we are proposing to students to work with those issues, not to take briefs from abroad. Well, and at the same time we want to be international, so it means that we are structuring our education according to the international principles. Well, what is important for us? Well, I think first of all that architecture is a part of culture, and we are focusing very much on the humanities. Well, we are writing a lot, we are reading a lot. Well, to bring more sociology, more politics, if you want, more economics to architecture. Well, then we want to keep somehow the handwork, the artistic work in architecture, because, well, in the age of computerization, of total digitalization, architecture, I think, must keep the link with our senses, with our body, with our landscape, and not only with the screen in front of us.
So, in terms of the architectural education at the school was 2012. It was founded. You're saying that it has interest in broadening the architectural discussion by focusing on a little bit on the social context, on the Russian context, and also on the intellectual context. Can you just describe practically the programs that exist now in the school, and how many students you have and how many faculty members you have?
Well, at the moment we have the full cycle of architectural education. It means the undergraduate and the postgraduate school, 3 years of undergraduate course and 2 years of master course, 5 years in total, which is the minimum required by the International Union of Architects and World Trade Organization for the education of architects. Well, and now you see, well, the structure of our program is very simple. Yes, in the center, in the core, this is the studio, the project, usually divided between research or analysis and the project as such, which is the answer to the questions which we are formulating during the research. Well, from one side there is a humanities cycle, theory and history of architecture, critical and cultural studies, architectural practice. Well, from the other side, the technical side, it's a technical cycle with structures, materials, technologies. Well, this is the main structure of 4 main modules, which are integrating different disciplines inside them.
How many students are now enrolled in both the?
In total, now there are more than 200 students.
Both the undergraduate and graduate.
Yes, we are enrolling each year 40 undergraduate applicants and 25 postgraduate. So, and we had already 5 graduations, 5 generation of masters, because we started with master course, and we added the undergraduate only in 2015, 4 years ago. Last year we had the first graduation of our bachelors.
And the students, where are they coming from primarily?
Mostly from Russia, and we are happy that students are coming to March from all over Russia, not only from Moscow. I would say that on our master course, more than half of students are coming from different regions of Russia, from Vladivostok to Kaliningrad or Vologda, well, from far east to the western part of Russia. Some of them are coming from former Soviet countries, Soviet republics, from Georgia or Armenia or Moldova or Kazakhstan, but not many. Well, our main language is Russian, so there is a language barrier, for example, between us and Europe. But there are some people coming from Europe as well, especially Russian students who started their studies somewhere in Europe and then decided to go back for master course, for example, after bachelor.
You described earlier that obviously the Moscow Institute is the largest and most prominent school of architecture currently, but in the 2000s, beginning of the 2000s, there were, with March, there was also the Strelka Institute, which is design, architecture, and then we had this other school of urbanism, the higher school of urbanism.
Yes,
Can you describe why these schools all of a sudden appeared at that time? You know, what do you think was some of the underlying dynamics behind the appearance of these schools in the late 2000, 2010 period?
I'm sure that there is a kind of public requirement, well, for new architectural education. Well, this is the main reason why many new schools appeared. Well, higher school of urbanism, well, they are working with town planning. Well, it is not exactly architecture. Well, they are more focused on research and analysis and town planning in larger scale. And Strelka, they do a lot of workshops, or this is not about architectural education. It's much more about, how to say, media, or how to connect architectural design with other social issues or other social spheres. Now they have a short course, 5 or 6 months each year. Well, this is maybe like postgraduate or something like a PhD course for not only for architects. Well, many people are coming to Strelka without architectural education. This is, I think, the good possibility, well, to connect different people in the frame of this course and to enlarge the horizon of architecture.
What do you, now that these schools are starting to produce their graduates who are now going out to practice, what do you hope will be the effect on architecture and architecture culture in Russia as a result of the architectural education you're giving these students? What do you hope that they would bring to the architectural dialogue and to actual builds in terms of actual built work?
Who knows? This is the good question. Maybe the most important question for the school. No, I would start with another fact, that we are involving to the school not only students but also tutors. Well, as I said already, well, our tutors are the most prominent Russian architects, and I hope, first of all, that the influence of international education is important for us, for them as well.
What does that mean, the influence of international education?
Well, first of all, we are asking them to write a brief. Well, not to follow the prescribed program, but to invent their own program, well, to formulate the problems, the tasks, what they want to work.
So this forces them to think a little bit more, to think more strategically about what they're doing.
Sure. And it is not easy, I would say, because they are working hardly with the practical issues, and to shift a little bit their minds, their ideas to work with students, not for the particular client or developer, but to think about architectural issues as such. It is challenge for them as well, and I think that school influences them, not only students but also tutors. If we are talking about our students, our graduates, well, we will see the result, I think, in 10 years or in 15 years. Architecture is still a slow process, a slow matter. I hope that they can change our market, well, to influence the clients.
Let's talk a little bit about this market. What, in terms of architecture in Moscow today, the built work, how would you characterize, I know it's difficult to make one sweeping judgment, what would you describe as the main features of the contemporary architecture being produced in, first of all, Moscow, but also the other major Russian cities?
Well, the first image, or the first idea is the idea of transformation, where in process of going from Soviet built environment to something else, but nobody knows what is something else. The market is still really, I would say, wild. Under dictate of clients, of developers. That's why our cities are much more similar to Asian ones, I think, to maybe Cairo or Delhi or even Istanbul, than to Amsterdam or Paris. Moscow and Petersburg are still growing. And
it's this pace and nature of this construction that you're saying is still a bit wild because of what gets built and what are the main decisions that go behind the built in terms of built architecture.
No.
How you think, does the architect have a major role today in what gets built and how it gets built? Do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm afraid that architects are now not on the first positions in this process. Well, first of all, the local authorities, then developers, and then only then architects with their expertise. And it is not in favor for cities, first of all, because I see that the Soviet urban models are reproducing within larger scale and only to get money, to get profit. I'm afraid that it will have a long impact to our cities during maybe 20, 30 or even 50 years after us. And it's a pity. It's a pity. Going back to my first point, my first idea that architecture is a part of culture, first of all, and not of real estate market, and not of technical sphere. And this is the lack of this understanding. I think that this is the reason why our cities looking like that.
So as a sort of future-looking perspective, you're an educator and an architect. What do you see as the possibility? You say that it's vague what will be the next architecture in Moscow and Russia, major cities of Russia. What do you feel would be the main? What would you like to see? What would you think needs to happen for this architecture from this vagueness to clear up and the next phase started?
Well, who knows?
For example, technology. What do you feel is the role of technology, such as robotics and computer-assisted design?
Well, I'm not sure that our future is really there. Of course, we will use the new technologies, but my wish, my dream, is first of all that our inhabitants our population participates somehow in the formation of the built environment for them, because they are our clients and they are our real customers, not only the developers or banks or authorities. Well, this is the main issue. And the second point is to preserve and to keep our heritage, which is now in a process of deterioration. We see that many buildings, we're losing many buildings or monuments every year. Well, and how to stop this process and to preserve what we still have. This is, I think, another issue to work with. And the robots and 3D printers, this is the instrument. Not they have no idea how to build. Well, we should have the idea how to use them.
Right, critical ability. Right. Okay. And as a sort of last question, we didn't mention him, but the founder of this march is Eugene Assa, who's a major intellectual figure in the architecture culture of Moscow the last 20, 30 years. And he's also an artist and a sort of intellectual figure. Can you describe somebody, Eugene, and describe how do you think was his sort of goal and vision for this school, and what do you think? What drove him, do you feel, to put this school together at the time?
Well, I think that I described already. Well, the main goals or main ideas of the school, and they belongs mostly to Eugene, of course, as a founder.
I ask because not that many people know many Russian architects outside of Russia. So a figure like him, what does he represent in terms of Russian architecture?
No, I think the idea of architecture as an art, as a part of culture, this is one of his key points. Because, as you said, well, he's an artist as well. Doing graphics or paintings, and another key point is architecture and humanities. This connection between, because Eugene is active also in this sphere, working together with museums, doing, for example, the design of exhibitions, writing articles, or working with theaters. Well, we in our school we did some shows with the Theater of Nations in Moscow. It means that those 2 points are, of course, the impact, of Eugene to school, and we are happy that we are working with him every day, and he's teaching actively. He's working with diploma students on our master course, and I am sure that our graduates will have this, those seeds which he puts in their minds, will give the good results. Okay,
so Nikita, thank you for your time. If you want to, do you have anything else you want to add with regard to either what you're doing at March, Moscow architecture, or your view of architecture globally? Anything you want to add to the end?
Well, very shortly. I'm sure that, as I said already, Moscow is for many reasons and many features, is similar to Asian megapolises, and Istanbul is one of them. And what would be interesting for me personally, I don't know how to organize it.
Something that the foundation has, the GAD Foundation has as a goal, and we would be interested, and hopefully continue this discussion at another time.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. So That was our discussion here on the GAD offices in Istanbul on January 7th with Nikita Tokarev of Moscow School of Architecture, Moscow Architecture School. Thank you very much, Nikita.
Well,
thank you.
thanks.